Good evening. Welcome, everybody. I am Terry Kay of the Jewish Grandparents Network. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so excited to welcome Adrian Kalikow, who will help guide us in our relationships with our adult children, the parents of our grandchildren. First, a big thank you to Zoe Fleischer and Sarah Reed, who are helping us facilitate tonight. You'll see Zoe will share links and put some information in chat. Talking about chat, if you have a question, please write it in the chat box or raise your virtual hand. We will pause for questions throughout. Adrian's going to present short pieces and then pause and allow us an opportunity for conversation. And we would love to hear your voice. Now, may I turn the mic over to our cherished friend and board member, Lisa Brill, who will introduce our presenter. Lisa is an active philanthropist and is vice chair of the Brill Family Charitable Trust. She's a longtime board member of the JCC Association, chair of the JCC Maccabi Games, and past president and trustee of the Marcus JCC in Atlanta. Lisa's greatest joy, she says, is being grandma, that's the name to her 2 grandchildren. Over to you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Terry. You're always so gracious. And truly, it is such a pleasure and a privilege for me to be here tonight representing Jewish Grandparents Network. And most importantly, to introduce our presenter tonight. I have a lot to learn. So I will keep this brief and let's get on with it. Adrian Kalikow is a Parent Coaching Institute certified parent coach and has worked with young children and their parents for over 40 years. Adrian has a private parent coaching practice in which she helps individuals, couples, and groups deal with their parenting challenges and move toward a better place in their parent-child relationships. She is the parent of 3 grown children, grandmother to 5 children. That's so exciting. And I, in particular, having 2 adult boys in their late 40s and 2 unbelievably wonderful daughters-in-law and 2 really special grandchildren, I can't wait to put this all together and hear from you and learn how to be part of the conversation even better. So Adrian, thank you for being here and take it away.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It is really such a pleasure to be here tonight with all of you. I just want to remind you that I really do want to hear your voices. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to present for a little while, and then we'll take about a 5-minute break for questions and comments, and then we will, I'll continue and we'll do the same again. So please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat or raise your hand so we will know when the time comes that you are waiting to do that. As a parent coach, part of my work has been facilitating parent groups for the last 20 years or so. I believe there's never been a group where the topic of grandparents hasn't come up for discussion. The themes have ranged from gratitude for having involved, helpful grandparents to frustration and even anger over what was perceived as interference and lack of trust, to sadness over grandparents' lack of involvement with their grandchildren, to grief over the absence of grandparents who were no longer alive or capable of participating in their family's life. Possibly the most disturbing story was one a mom shared, who said that she felt the need to make 2 separate birthday parties for her child because the 2 sets of grandparents refused to be in the same room at the same time. The role of grandparents is definitely on the mind of parents. When I was given the opportunity to present a webinar for the Jewish Grandparents Network, I decided there was no better way to honor the needs of both the parents with whom I work and the grandparents who share the role I'm now navigating in my life so happily, than to allow parents a platform for sharing the messages they would most like to share with their children's grandparents. In this effort, I sent a simple survey to over 100 parents, asking them the question, if you were free to be completely honest, what is the one message you would most like to share with your children's grandparents? The respondents included parents of babies, toddlers, elementary school children, tweens, and teens. The honesty, thoughtfulness, and respect in which the responses were presented was heartwarming and enlightening. It's my goal tonight to honor your children and their peers by sharing what they would most like to share with you. What do our children need from us as they navigate their parenting and we navigate our role as grandparents? Before I get to the meat of the presentation, I'd love for you to take a moment to ponder a question, and if you desire, put the answer in the chat. Please choose one of your adult children who is now a parent. When you think of that child as a parent, what is the first word or two that comes to your mind to describe them? So just take a moment and think about your child who is now a parent and consider what you think their most striking quality to you is. I'm seeing proud, devoted, loving, committed, patient, thoughtful, protective, engaged, guidance. You think that your child is amazing, that they're overwhelmed and stressed and overstructured and involved. They're not communicative and they're rigid. They're evolving and they're devoted. So I thank you so much for sharing those words, because I think that they reflect all the many things that go on in our minds about our children who are parents. Many of us are so proud and we see our children doing what they're doing with such devotion and commitment. At the same time, many of us have concerns and we're worried, and we think about what do they need us to do so that they can do their jobs in a better way. From the themes that emerge from the questions to the survey, the first I'd like to discuss is listen without judgment. During my training as a parent coach, there was a principle we learned that was just emblazoned on my mind over and over again. The principle states that relationships are primary. Everything we do with our children and grandchildren can be couched in the ever-present question, what relationship do I want to have with these people who are so dear to me? A core quality in any good relationship is the ability of each person to be a good listener. But what exactly does that mean? One fact that was pointed out to me years ago that I always remember, and it instructs me, is that the word listen has the same letters in it as the word silent. This stands as a reminder to us in our interactions with our adult children. When they speak to us, they want us to truly hear what they're saying without judgment, preaching, or opinions. Among the responses I received were such comments as, unsolicited advice is frustrating, and hold back your opinions unless you are asked. Our children want to be able to speak to us, even vent to us, without our having the need to step in with what we might see as wisdom, but they see as interference. If they ask, then please answer. If they don't ask, then please remain lovingly silent. On this theme, a few other comments were, if we have concerns, please don't shrug them off and say we don't have anything to worry about. We know our children better than anyone. And I often feel like my parenting style is being judged by my children's grandparents. And possibly it was best said by a mom who stated, "I appreciate the non-judgmental feedback and advice I am given as a parent, as opposed to the I would do X or advice with the sense that this is the right way to do something." So remember, listen silently, no judgment, and no advice unless it's asked for. I'm going to move on to a second theme that came up, which was, it's our turn. Trust us. Most of the time, when I speak with grandparents, they talk about how much better this job is than being a parent was. And they make the joke that if they would have known that this job was so much fun, they would have done it first. I'm sure you've heard the same. But I have a confession to make. I am not one of those grandparents. I loved being a parent. I feel it was the highlight of my life's work. It was harder than any other job, but more rewarding than any other as well. While I truly treasure my relationships with my grown children and the in-law children they have brought into my life, I miss being a parent of growing children. However, I realize it's not my turn now. I had my turn. I tried my best. I did a lot right, and I'm sure I did a lot wrong. Now it's my children's turn to raise the next generation. They have their own way, and in some ways, their way is like mine, and in others, it's nothing like mine. And they have brought co-parents to the picture who were not raised by me and have different ideas about what it means to be a good parent. The responses to the survey reflected the tension between parents and grandparents when it comes to each party believing they know what is right. Some of the comments I received included, "You raised us. Now it's time for us to raise our children. It's our turn." Trust that we know what to do and will make the best decisions for our little one and our family. And remember that it's okay if we don't raise our kids exactly how you raised us. Please be respectful of that if you choose to provide advice or your opinion. We did our job. Most of us have come away with pride and with some regrets. Now it's our children's turn. We need to trust that they have taken the best of what we gave them and have the need to do things in their own way in order to feel they're being the best parents that they can be for their growing family. So with that, having talked about listening and trust, I'm wondering if there are any questions out there or comments that anyone had.
We have a lot of comments in chat, and I want to invite our friends who are here tonight to just unmute yourself and ask your question.
I'll start.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Who's speaking?
My name's Deborah. I understand what you're saying and agree with it as far as when about or not asking about advice with the grandchildren. What happens when we as grandparents or actually parents feel we want to put the input into their life, not what's going on or how they're parenting, but out to our adult children? Do we keep quiet then also?
Can you give me an example of what you mean without
Let's say
giving
it's something about their career or whether they're going to buy a house or this one versus that. Is it time to buy a new car? And they ask, but they really don't necessarily want the answer, something like that.
Okay. I think that the same principle stands throughout their life, they are moving ahead now. They want us to be there behind them. They want us supporting them, but they don't want us to be telling them what to do. I believe the best way to approach it is with questions. You can say, I know you've had that car for a really long time. Are you thinking of getting a new one? And if they say no, then the answer is no, but you at least plant that idea in their mind. Or if you're concerned because let's say they seem unhappy with a job that they're doing, then I think it is absolutely right to step up and say, I'm concerned because you seem unhappy lately. How are things going at work? The best way to get information from our children and to end up sharing with them, I believe, is by asking questions without any accusations or any judgment attached to them, but by putting it in their court so that they can tell us what they're thinking and then not have judgment afterward, not say, well, what are you, nuts? Your car's falling apart. You have to get a new one. But to say, well, if I see that I hear you and sounds good to me, but let me know if you change your mind and if you need any help with it. So I think asking questions is the way to go.
Thanks, Adrian. Deborah, thanks so much for being the Nachshon in this event. There's a couple of questions in chat. And Adrian, we might just go off on a tangent here. So you tell us when we need to come back to you, okay, to your presentation. So let's jump to Alice, who has Alice has her hand up.
Thank you, and thank you for the talk. Let me preface my question with that a number of friends and I have a saying, and one of my friends does a motion, that it's best to keep one's mouth zipped, which goes along with much of what you're saying. However, if you're a grandparent who cares for grandchildren, not just grandchildren, on a regular basis, so there are no parents around, and in that caring, you need to establish limits and boundaries with what can be done. Then when you're with the parents and the children, the grandchild has done the behavior that you've set limits with, that's a very difficult moment not to say, don't you want to zip up your jacket when you're out in the cold? Something like that. That's a very difficult situation to be in because the parents feel they're there, they can do it, but you've established a relationship already with limits and boundaries.
I think that's a really, really great point, and I appreciate your making it. When we are given a lot of caregiving responsibility for our grandchildren, it's truly our right and our obligation, I think, to set limits for them and to have them understand where we come from, as long as we are respectful. Like if the parents have shared with us something that they absolutely feel, we need to stick with that. But in general, we have our own relationship, and the only way we can have a true relationship with our grandchildren is for us to be genuine, authentic, and honestly who we are. When we step into their turf, though, and it's their home, I believe that it's time to defer to them. And if you would tell a child to zip up their jacket, but mom is okay with them going outside without the jacket at all, I do believe we have to button our lips at that time and not step in, because I think often it's harder than we imagine for parents to turn their children over so much and to know that so much of the parenting is turned over to another authority figure in their children's lives. And when they have them, they need to feel confident in knowing that they are the ones in charge. So that's where I come from on that. I think we're going to continue, but we will come back after a couple more, after we talk about a couple more themes, and we'll take a few more questions. But thank you so much for those really, really thoughtful remarks and different ways of thinking about things, which I am so glad you brought up. So far we heard that parents want us to listen and they want us to trust them. The next theme is that they want our respect. It came out clearly to me, respect us and our children. In order to unconditionally love our children and grandchildren, we need to show them the respect they deserve as individuals. Each parent is on his or her own journey, and each grandchild is unique. One child may adore time baking or hiking or reading science books with you, and another may have their own ideas about how to spend their time. And in order to show our respect to both our children and our grandchildren, we need to be at their service rather than always expecting them to be at ours. Parents want us to show them respect by taking them seriously. One parent said, be respectful of parameters set by parents. If they say, let her cry 10 minutes before getting her from the crib, let her cry 10 minutes before getting her. If they say they can't come to a family reunion that's a flight away, say you understand. And another shared the request, if I ask for help watching my kids so I can do a task, I do not want you to do the task. I want you to spend time with the kids. One parent put it succinctly by stating, it's important to respect each other's autonomy as parents, even while supporting and guiding us with your own life lessons and experiences as parents. In other words, parents want to learn from us, but they want us to put our own agendas aside. They'll feel respected when they feel like we take them seriously and give them the authority that they deserve as the parents of their own children. In order to develop the relationship we want to have with our grandchildren, we need to also respect who they are as individuals. That is really, really key. The need to be able to be themselves when they're with us and not feel like they have to be someone that we want them to be is key in connecting them to us and having them feel safe and loving toward us. And they need to feel that we really want to be with them. I knew a grandfather who adored his 3 grandchildren. He would greet them with the most generous hugs and smiles. But before too long, he would become involved in a conversation with his son, and the kids didn't really know what to do. Mom would try to entertain her children, but was saddened by the lack of interaction between a loving Poppy and his grandchildren. And she sadly felt that he just didn't know what he was missing. She thought, he has these great grandchildren and he loves them. Why isn't he playing with them and engaging with them? On this topic, parents shared such desires as allow children to grow, learn, and interact with you on their own terms. Listen to your grandkids. They don't get a lot of time with you, and they savor every bit of it. They will remember every moment you give them. And be interested in the kids' lives and interests. You maybe couldn't care less about the ninja warriors, but for them, you act like you care because that will make a difference in your relationship with them and will carry on as they become interested in other things that maybe you will be interested in. Your grandchildren love you no matter what. Show you love them by being interested in who they really are and involved in what is important to them, not just to you. So we now know that parents want us to listen, they want us to trust them, and they want us to respect them. Probably the loudest message I got from the survey was, time is the best gift you can give us. By far, the most consistent request that appeared in the answers to the survey was a plea to grandparents to show up, to be there, to give their time in ways that will help and support their children and foster loving bonds with their grandchildren. Our children want us to pay attention to their needs and to show up for them in the ways that will make their lives easier. They also value what we have to give their children, and they want us to take the opportunity to do so. On the topic of being there for our children, I received such comments as, one grandma continuously offers to babysit, to let us go out for lunch, a hike, or dinner. It's amazing. We would feel bad asking. We're so grateful. And she gets to spend some time with her grandchild. It would be great if an occasional, or at the very least on our anniversary, free babysitting were offered so that we could go on a date night. As great as it is to all spend time together, sometimes it would be nice if grandparents just let mom and dad go off and they watched the baby without any guilt. And they said, we love the help, being able to get a little break here and there, the valuable guidance and company. There was even more emphasis on the importance of grandparents spending time with grandchildren than on the parents' need for a break. Parents see the bond our grandchildren have with us as a gift that is welcome as often as possible. Some of their wise comments included, if the kids prefer one grandparent because they are perceived to be more fun, it's probably because that grandparent says yes to spending time with them. That's all they need. Just showing up matters. Every moment is a memory that you're creating. They love time with you. One mom said, my kids enjoy time with their grandparents without me and my husband around. And this time also gives grandparents more freedom in calling the shots. I love that my kids have the opportunity for one-on-one time and really see that their local grandparents' house has become a safe space where they beg to be. Not all live close, but the little things like FaceTiming to the ones not local are great. Grandparents are a critical part of their grandchildren's life. They are not just nice to see from time to time at gatherings. Spend time with your grandkids and get to know them. Share your struggles, successes, and stories. And someone shared, anytime you want to spend with the grandkids outside of holidays and special occasions is terrific. We want you to have a special relationship connection with each grandchild. In today's day and age, it is common for us to be in positions where we're not able to be in person with our grandchildren very often. Also, some grandparents have physical disabilities or ailments that prevent them from spending in-person time very often with their grandchildren. In our family, one granddaughter lives in San Francisco, and one will be moving from Brooklyn to Denver right after she turns 1. COVID hasn't helped with this issue either. Even the local grandchildren were hard to see for a while. We found that reading and chatting on FaceTime is essential in keeping us connected. I love that my granddaughter begs her parents for story time with Safti. Also, sending little inexpensive but thoughtful surprises keeps us present in our grandchildren's minds. During the pandemic, we sent our local granddaughters art projects, outdoor games, and even the makings for an ice cream party. When children live far away, We don't need a pandemic to remind us to connect whatever way we can by giving them our time and helping them spend theirs. So now that we've talked about listening, trust, respect, and time, we can take a few more minutes for some questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Judy. Judy's iPad. Let's jump to you. Can you put your camera on again, Judy? That would be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
I said, I think respect goes both ways, because I get the feeling, you know, I've talked to a number of my friends that we have to always be quiet. We can't, and it's a one-way street. And I'll say this, you know, we send gifts. We don't get thank you notes. We don't get a call. It seems it's always a one-way street. What you were saying, spending time. I want to spend more time with my grandchildren. And I did, they were younger, and I go to the games. And then there was, it seems like there's never time for us anymore. There's no time. The grandkids are, one just 14, one just turned 12. They have time for everything else. Even my daughter going out, you know, with her friends for drinking. But for us, it's like, they don't even call us back. Everything is a little text. So I hear
Adrian,
this all of what they want. They want, the kids all want us to keep our mouths quiet. They know, but they're not respecting that we're human beings and that we are people. And I'm so glad you're doing this, because I said, I'm going to say this, that it seems to be a one-way street with a lot of this generation.
I'm really glad that you did say it. And I think that such an important part of any significant relationship is communication. And what I think some people are experiencing is that they feel that the communication goes one way and they're not allowed for it to go the other way. And that's not communicating. That's being dictated to. The question comes in, how do we communicate back so that they don't become defensive and close down to us? I believe it needs to come from a place of love, a place of reminding them how much we love them, that we miss them, that we miss our grandchildren, and what can we do to change that? Thank you. I'll share a story that happened. I don't remember what it was that we had done, but we did something, and our daughter has 3 children, and the kids, you know, they kind of just took it and ran with it. And I was hurt. I was honestly hurt that they didn't thank us for it. So I pulled them aside and I just talked about me. And I said, I love them so much and I do things for them because I love them. But when somebody does something for you, you need to at least say thank you, or I know what it was. It was they were leaving and not giving us a hug. And and they were getting in the car, and I know that my daughter and son-in-law, you know, were busy getting 3 kids all out of the house and all. But it was important to me to have the goodbye hug. So I pulled the girls the next time. I didn't do it that time, but the next time I told them, I said, you know, last time you left without giving me a hug, and I really love those hugs and I need those hugs. So when you leave from now on, can you please remember to hug me? And they haven't forgotten since, and we laugh, and it's a special part of our connection. And I think that the same is true in our communication with our children. When something's not happening that we need to happen, if we don't speak up in some way, the resentment builds, and then at some point we might say something that we don't want to say. So I think it's important to couch our comments in our love for our children and letting them know how much they matter to us, and that something is going on right now that's not working. And so what can we do to change it?
Thank you, Adrian. I think we've got a ton of questions. I'm just going to go in order. Ellen and Dan have very patiently, they wrote in chat, if you could briefly, very briefly address what happens, how we should respond when our children feel they have to manage us as well as their own children. In other words, the role reversal that comes before we're actually ready for it.
Oh, so they're taking care of, the children act like they need to be taking care of grandma and grandpa before grandma and grandpa have any desire to be taken care of. I think that's what I'm hearing. I think that once again, you can say something like, you guys have your hands full with kids right now, and we're really okay. So if we need your help, we're going to let you know, but please, we're good, and share your concerns with us if you have them, but please put your attention to the kids right now and we'll manage. I think coming right out and saying it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time for one more?
If you do one more, and then we're gonna.
Okay, quick. But this is a biggie. So as much as you can give us in a minute. We have a question in chat. What happens if our children don't want any questions or refuse to discuss anything? In other words, no communication occurs.
That's painful. It's really painful. And I really feel for anyone who is experiencing that. I think sometimes kids, if you give them time, they might give you that to start with. But if you give them time and approach them in the right way, that they might open the door. I think that once again, I feel that all of these communications need to start with the words, I love you. And because I love you, this is bothering me a lot. And you might not want to talk about it, but I need to say this. And you say what you need to say, and they might shut you down. Sometimes it can be useful if this comes naturally to you and you keep your negative emotions out of it, if you write to them. A letter can be a dangerous thing if you let everything that's inside you out. But if you're thoughtful and you write to them what you're thinking, sometimes that gives them some time to look and see what you have said and think about it. But I think most of all, it has to be couched in love and saying, I love you. This relationship is really important to me and it's not going well. And I would like to know and talk about what we can do to fix it.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
So I hope that's helpful. I know that that's a very painful position to be in. Thank you once again for those thoughtful comments and questions. And we're going to return to our themes for a bit. We'll review and say that we know that parents want us to listen. They want us to trust them, to respect them, and to give them time. Another theme that emerged was to put yourself in our shoes, they said. Our children know that we were once parents of young children, but they sometimes believe that we've lost any memory of those times. Before we make demands of them or criticize what they're doing, they want us to put ourselves in their shoes, to try to remember and imagine what it's like to live the lives they are living right now. They ask that you do what you would have wanted someone to do for you, even if you didn't get that yourself. I can remember just wishing someone would come and watch the kids for a little while so I could simply be by myself for a change and refresh. I knew I would be a better mom if I got a little break. Can we as grandparents put aside our opinions and our needs and try to remember what it felt like to be a young parent trying to juggle all the demands that were on us? I believe one parent spoke for many when she said, please try to remember what life was like when your kids were little and be patient with us. Know that if we don't immediately answer your call or call you right back or can't make it down to New Jersey to visit next week or whatever else, it's just because we are truly just crazy busy, not just with our lives, but with our kids' lives too. We love you. I know that we sometimes look and we say that priorities are a little different than we would like them to be, and that we would like family to be higher on the priority than the soccer or the art or the birthday parties or any of the other things that the kids are doing. Parents are living in the world they're living, and they are trying their best to juggle it all, and having us kind of breathing down their backs and saying, you know, why can't you come? Why can't you be here? That's really adding pressure to them. So if we can take a little time to pause and try to remember what it was like to be overwhelmed by the demands of parenthood, we might be in a better position to be who our children need us to be. So they want us to listen and trust and respect and give them time. They want us to have empathy for them and understand what they're going through. They also want us to know that times have changed. This goes back to the judgment piece that we talked about earlier. Parents are living in a time that is different from when we were raising them. Guidelines, products, and even worries are different. Cell phones and social media play a role we never could have imagined. We never had to negotiate a pandemic with children being home full-time for many months. The political climate in our country has changed dramatically. The war raging in Ukraine is a scary, scary threat for our children. They need us to acknowledge and adapt to their need to do things differently than we did. They are trying to do the best they can and need us to appreciate their efforts rather than talk about the good old days when we knew just what to do. Parents shared such comments as, present-day guidelines for sleeping, feeding, and learning are different. We accept them as parents and hope that you embrace and follow them as well as grandparents. Things are different now. It doesn't mean that the way we were raised was wrong or bad. Times have changed, and doing things differently doesn't mean we don't appreciate all that was done for us or the way in which it was done. But everyone has to find their own style and ways of working. Don't pressure your kids about when milestones should be reached with their kids in areas like potty training, crawling, and speaking. You are not the expert on our child, they said. Our children also don't want us to take it personally when they choose to follow a different path than we would have chosen. They want us to realize that it's not about us, but about their need to figure out how to do things their way. One parent went as far as to say, grandparents are a blessing, but can be overwhelming at times. And another one shared, there's nothing wrong with you. My child is just really attached to me right now. Our children want us to realize when enough is enough, when we need to step back and honor their way. They want us to remember when our own children were going through separation issues or facing other challenges, and honor the need to allow time and space for them to navigate the issues without showing our disappointment or hurt. The last thing that we should want to do is to give our children a harder time than they're already having. When we criticize or make them feel we are being hurt by their actions or decisions that actually have nothing to do with us, we are adding to their burden instead of lessening it. I know that's the last thing that I ever want to do in this precious relationship with my children. So I think that if before I do the concluding theme that came out of the survey, if we have some more questions, that would be wonderful.
Let's thank you, Adrian. Laurie, you've been waiting so patiently, as have, looks to me like 49 other people. So would you like to present your question, Laurie.
It's actually a comment. I've met you before, Terry, on Zoom. I run a grandparent program for J Family in Metro Detroit. And these are the issues that our grandparents are bringing to our group as well. And one of the things that I put in the chat was a suggestion that I've heard, and I'm on tonight to collect as much other input and insight as I can so that I can share. I'm also a grandparent of 4 grandchildren myself. And one of the things I put in the chat was when a adult child is talking about anything like, oh my goodness, I'm not getting any sleep, and I've tried this and I don't know, and they're complaining, that the best thing we can do is ask permission to give our input. And I'm looking to see the way it was worded. Would you like to hear a suggestion? And if they say no, you have to respect the fact that they said no and allow space for them to come back to you, because they have that aha moment of, my mom was going to tell me something about helping the baby get to sleep and I didn't listen, but maybe I could go back and ask her now. So you leave an open door. And the other thing that I think is a continued issue that I don't know in today's world how we can get around, but we all use cell phones. So back in the day when you would call your kid's house and say it was your daughter's, it was your daughter, the son-in-law would answer the phone and you would have a few minutes of kibitzing and you would build a little teeny bit of a relationship as you go. Now, the only way we communicate with the one that's not your birth child is if you're calling them for a specific question, am I picking up so-and-so at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock? And there's not that relationship building. I remember very distinctly my mother-in-law making a point of taking us to lunch, the girls, the daughter-in-laws, or doing whatever we can to build relationships with that opposite person. And I think it's really important that we consider spending some time building that relationship with the opposite parent.
Thank you so much, Lori. It's so important. And I know you're so right that barrier of the cell phone is tremendous. And I have taken to sometimes with the cell phone, just texting my in-law child about something just to show that I care what they say, because when I text both, it's always my child who answers. So going that way, but it's so true that we need to find ways to connect with those in-law children different than it was years ago. It's also, you sometimes got children on the phone when you call. I mean, the whole phone thing is tremendous. I also, your first point, Lori, was spot on about asking the question about whether they want to hear from you. And if they say no, you say no. But once again, you've opened the door, you've shown you care, and they can always come back. So thank you.
Thank you. Laurie with her colleagues, runs a magnificent grandparenting group in Detroit, as she said. Do we have time before you go to your final theme for tonight, Adrian? Do we have time for one more question? Sure. Renee Chero-Leary has her hand up. Would you like to speak to us, dear Renee?
Sure. Hi, Terry. Good to see you. I'm curious. This is a much longer question, so perhaps it's too long. I wonder about people experiencing religious differences in practice among families where the grandchild is affected in some way. For example, will they or won't they have a bar mitzvah? And it's a very difficult thing because spiritual life is so particular. And so even if everybody comes to the Seder, everybody does what families do. But in the end of making that kind of a choice for a child, you cannot push. But I'm curious, any thoughts you might have?
Renee, I'm so I'm glad on the one hand you brought it up. On the other hand, it is such a big topic. And I will share that as I was putting together my thoughts for tonight, I said, wow, we have the whole topic of, this is a Jewish grandparents network. We have the whole topic of children being raised in different religions, and how do we respect that while also sharing what we have. And I said, that's a whole other talk. And so I did not include that, but I think that just in very short, it comes down once again to respect, to always being appreciative of the decisions that our children have made. Asking a question, and you can ask a question, have you thought about whether Johnny's going to have a bar mitzvah? And if you get shut down, then that's it. If you get an and you can add, if you feel like it would be welcome, you can say, if you ever decide to go that route, no, I'm here to help you out. But then I think you need to step back and take things as they come. And then when children are in your house, you offer, if you have them for Shabbat dinner, if you have them for Seder, if you have them in your sukkah, whatever you are able to give them, you give them, and they're going to grow up and run with it, whatever direction they run. But when those big decisions really belong to our children. So thank you. So Terry, I think you're talking, but you're muted, but.
Thank you. We have 8 minutes left.
So I'm gonna
just to
continue. And
I just want to say several people have asked for your contact information. I just want to let all our friends know that I will be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow with the recording and various other information, and we will include how to contact Adrian in that email.
Thank you. Thank you. So finally, the last theme that came out really strongly was we love and appreciate you. The bottom line is that our children love us. They want us to be proud of them, and they want us to accept their decisions and believe what they're doing is the best that they can do. They want us to be proud of them, and they want us to be proud of our grandchildren, and to be proud of the job they're doing with our grandchildren. They love when we show up without judgment and with an attitude of acceptance and generosity. They remind us of what they need when they say such things as, your home-cooked meals are always welcome. Thank you. If you want an easy way to be helpful, cook. Your help is so valuable. I think anyone with interested grandparents should be completely grateful, whether or not they are perfect. And finally, a parent summed up many parents' wishes with wisdom, insight, and appreciation. I feel very grateful to have two sets of grandparents who are active participants in their grandchildren's lives. They care about what they are interested in, come to sporting events when they can, are always willing to come and babysit and spend time with them. I am grateful for this, and so are my kids. It's a win, win, win. Win for my kids to have a relationship with their grandparents. A win for the grandparents to spend quality time and really get to know their grandchildren. And a win for the parents to have some time to be better parents. Our children love us and they need us. They need us to step in and to know when to step out. They need us to appreciate the challenges they face without telling them how to fix them. They need us to share our time, stories, and love with their precious children on whatever terms work for their family. They need us to trust that they've got this. At the same time, they need us to show our pride in the work they are doing. Just as when they were smaller, they need us to believe in them so that they can believe in themselves. I always am telling parents of younger children that in order for a child to believe in themselves, you need to show you believe in them. And that doesn't stop. Our grown children who act so grown up and separate from us still want our approval. They want to know we're proud of them and that we believe in them being able to do it. And then they can believe in their own ability. In summation, I'm going to share my screen for an overview of the 7 main themes. And I wish that, I'm sorry, I wish that I could have shared everything that every parent shared with me. I'm ever grateful for their wisdom and willingness to open up their minds and hearts on this topic. I mean, the parents' answers were amazing. But just in summation, the first theme was listen without judgment. And we have to just remember that listen equals silent, and we keep our mouths shut when we can. But once again, going to when we were talking earlier, if we need to say something, doing it gently and doing it with questions more than with unsolicited advice. Next, it's our turn, trust us. Our children want us to know that they know we did our work and they want to be trusted to do theirs. Respect us and our children. Our children want themselves and their children to be seen as individuals and not for us to have some picture and some box that they need to fit in. They need to know that we accept them as they are and that we are happy to be with them as they are. And talking about happy to be with them, time is the best gift you can give us, they said. We don't always have the ability to give time in person, but there are other ways to give our time through FaceTime, through little games that we play over a distance. We can just give a call to one of our grandchildren and spend time listening to them. Just being able to give our time is a real gift to them. Put yourself in our shoes. If we can go back that far, try to remember what it was like to be a parent yourself with all the demands of the carpools and the sporting events and the birthday parties and the sick kids for weeks in a row. Put yourself in their shoes so that you can be empathic to what they're going through. Times have changed. They're not living in the same world we raised them in. They're raising their children in a very different world, and they want us to realize that and to respect their need to live in a different world and to do things differently. And last, but very much not least, we love and appreciate you. They love us and they want to know that we love them and that we appreciate everything that they are doing and that we believe in them. And only when we believe in them can they believe in themselves.
Thank you, Adrian.
I'm having trouble stopping the share, but I'm trying. So
That's okay. Take your time.
you can
Friends,
continue on.
Yeah, here you go. We are closing in on 8 o'clock, and we do have a commitment to use to stick to the hour. So first, there's something I want to say, but first, Adrian, thank you, for these incredible insights that I was like freaking out at some of the things you said. It's like, oh no. And we so especially appreciate the robust conversation that you generated. There has been a tremendous interest in this topic. We've seen it. We saw by the registration how much you care about this. And so we spoke to Adrian before the session, and Adrian has graciously offered to host a small, more intimate follow-up conversation next Monday, on Monday, February the 6th. We want to ensure that all participants in that small group conversation have plenty of time to share. So we are going to limit registration to the first 50 people who sign up, 50. I will include that sign up link in our email tomorrow. And I want to assure you that if you get closed out of that, if enrollment is fully subscribed, we will find other opportunities to engage you in these informal conversations. We feel this is just the beginning. To all of you, thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate your engagement. Adrian, thank you for your incredible insights and all the research and hard work you put into this presentation. Zoe, Sarah, thank you so much. And to all of you, have a wonderful week, and we look forward to our next event together.